The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
Hello there, Happy New Year, and you're very welcome along to this Monday's Off the Ball. Neil Treacy here with you until 10 o'clock tonight on News Talk. Coming up, we'll be keeping you updated on Southampton against Liverpool in the Premier League. Liverpool looking to get back into victory formation after consecutive draws and move 3 points clear of Manchester United once again. Mark Lawrenson will be joining us at 7:30 to preview that game. At 8 then we're live to France and Ronan O'Gara on Monday Night Rugby. We'll chat to him about another good win for La Rochelle at the weekend and react to Connacht's big victory versus Leinster and the form of Jack Byrne. He was on OTB AM this morning. Should he be right back in the international mix after his record-setting points haul on Saturday night? And then in the football show between 9 and 10, we'll speak to Pat Nevin as usual for a Monday evening. Lots to break down after Chelsea's defeat to Man City yesterday. Frank Lampard coming under increasing pressure. Arsenal finding their form. Man United drawing level with Liverpool at the top for the time being at least. And speaking of United, we'll have Andy Mitten on the football show also. United announcing their former midfielder Darren Fletcher as a new first team coach today. What will that mean for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side? Get your texts into us, 53106 at a cost of 30 cents, or you can catch us on Twitter at Off the Ball. We're streaming live across all of our social platforms at the moment, and you can listen to us on the OTB Sports app. If you don't have it downloaded already, just search OTB Sports in your app store now. So it's time for the news round this evening, and the news round is brought to you with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. Richie McCormack and Ronan Mullen are here with me on Skype. Evening, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Neil. Happy New Year, Ronan.
Same to you, Neil.
What was the feeling like this morning when, after the Christmas break, the alarm clock goes off and you wake up and there's hail and rain lashing at the windows? 2021 is upon us, and it turns out it's just as rubbish as 2020.
Yeah, it's a bright start to start the year on there, Neil. Thanks for that. We've got human alarm clocks in this house, so being woken up at ungodly hours is no new thing, and then being off school now for the next week or four means that it's kind of something that you have to get used to. But yeah, it's been difficult getting back into the swing.
That means but you have researchers now at your disposal, Richie, for your news round every day.
They're
broadcast assistants.
Only the best news first. I have them scouring different international sites so they can bring me news stories and we can break them first on OTB Sports. But yeah, it's been mad getting back to it because like I had a decent, thankfully enough, break. Some others mightn't have done. So they're kind of bemoaning the likes of us who are coming back off long holidays. But you've been working a good gazine fairly well over the Christmas, Neil.
I was in a couple of days. Probably got. What was I doing? I was back in Sunday 27th. Then last Tuesday I think I was doing, and Sunday just gone. So not too many days.
The thing about it is we're now coming into the period called the Kenny Cunningham paradox, whereby where do you keep saying Happy New Year to people? At what point is the cut-off for you? Yeah, you see, it's like I was saying it yesterday on the show as well. So I kind of feel that but I'll be here tomorrow evening as well. I'm not going to be throwing out Happy New Year's. Maybe to the occasional guest who maybe we haven't spoken to in a while, but I'm not going to be leading off tomorrow's show with a Happy New Year, you know. I'm going to have to come up with something more original to speak to you about at this time tomorrow. We'll go by the Saints' Day.
When it's still January and you haven't seen the person yet, I still think Happy New Year is on the table. But, you know, the closer you get to February, people are going to start giving you some strange looks. But, you know, if it's a regular contributor, I'm sure we'll welcome them into 2021, Neil.
How was the Christmas anyway for you, Ron?
It was good. Like, in the circumstances, you know, I think sport was a welcome crutch. I saw your tweet over the weekend, Neil, and I think a lot of people felt very seen by your TV auto-powering off because it had been on
That was a great day. That was a fantastic day.
That was basically every sporting day in 2020. Like, unlike Lockdown 1, which it seems sort of unfathomable that we managed to manoeuvre our way through zero sport. But, like, especially when the GAA was in full flow, and then over Christmas, like, those midweek matches of the days always felt like a treat or something that came around every now and then. The way the season is now, it's like it's the done thing, it's the new normal. So I think sport was a welcome help for people. I know it's always in the background around Christmas, but generally when you're going around meeting up with people, it's sort of it's a reference point. I think this year it was a centre point, and a lot of people, it was a welcome distraction, and there was a lot of entertaining stuff on, not least the rugby and the football, and plenty more besides.
Well, one good thing as well about sitting down all day on Saturday, or maybe you did several days of it over the course of the last week or so, was not only were you just plonked on the couch watching matches after matches or movies after movies, but also you could console yourself with the fact that you were being responsible as well, because you're staying at home and you're doing all this. So there wasn't the guilt of, I should really have gone out and done something with this fine afternoon,
As you know, I've never felt guilty about taking in 2 sessions of the darts in one day on TV. Like, that's just being a responsible adult anyway, watching the darts. But now you had all the more excuse to settle down into the nuts and bolts of the earlier parts of the draw at the PDC World Championships. And that was the weird thing that, like the Ronan pointed out there, because there was so much sport and because it was incumbent upon us to stay in and watch telly as much as possible, that stuff like the darts didn't seem as special. And not only because obviously there weren't crowds there, but because it had so much company in terms of stuff that you had to watch. Like, football is so spaced out now in terms of match days and all that. Rory Smith had a really good thread about this earlier on today, whereby he's asking if the specialness of a match day has been lost forever. The idea that you might have 6, 7, 8, 9 games on the one day. And that just doesn't happen anymore for a number of reasons. The primary one now at the moment being the people that need to see matches because they're not allowed into stadiums. But I can see, even with fans allowed back into stadiums at some point later this year, touch wood, that they're going to keep this format whereby we have games split up into 2, 3, 4 days in terms of a match day, and it just seems fragmented. It takes away a little bit of the specialness of a match day. That whole thing of looking out for somebody else's result at the same time that your team is playing is lost now, possibly forever. Yeah,
I saw that thread that Rory Smith had tweeted out as well, and it is really interesting as well, because like you were saying, you can kind of see that when we do get back to having fans in stadiums, that they probably are going to try keep some bit of this kind of staggered kickoffs throughout the weekend. And while it's great watching those on TV, there always was something really cool, something nice about the Saturday 3 o'clock kickoffs, where you have a bunch of 4 or 5 of them and sitting there and just kind of listening to the scores coming in or watching the updates coming in.
Yeah, and the other main crux of his thread was that this has highlighted the fact that we now get to see every match, or nearly every match at the moment. It's highlighted that a lot of the Premier League fare is not actually that good. Like, it's certainly not the best league in the world that it's purported itself to be over the last 2 decades or so, but there are a lot of games that are very much worth just catching in a 30-second match of the day roundup later that night, rather than sitting through the whole 90 minutes. As much of a football aficionado as you might be, as much of a diehard, ex-supporter as you might be, there's a lot of it you can just happily pass by and not have to endure, and watch the darts instead, because the darts is a far superior form of entertainment.
Neil, I was just going to say, like, it was going to take something out of the realm for that blackout on the 3 o'clock kickoffs to actually come into play, and now that they've seen the reality of it, granted it's far from ideal, and we all know that, but now that they've had it, it's hard to see them ceding that control over their rights, which, let's be realistic here, if your team's playing at 3 p.m. in the Premier League and you want to watch it, you can find a way to watch it. And the Premier League have been trying to stamp that out for the last decade or so. And the only way they're going to do that is by introducing a Netflix-style method for people in this part of the world to watch it. I know it's certainly available to people in other parts of the world. So I think we're at the point of no return on the broadcasting side of things.
Or is the compromise to have like a kind of an NFL red zone format where you have 4 or 5 games going on at 3 o'clock and whatever your Soccer Saturday on Sky Sports, or I can't even remember the name of BT's version.
They just did a goal show, I think.
Yeah, it is actually the goal show, like on a Champions League night, where as they're going in, you can have an eye on each and every game. So, there's an element of these games are available on TV, but you also have the kind of the full match day experience of a lot of action, and you're not probably getting a little bit bored with, it might be Fulham and West Brom 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon, because let's face it, that probably has been since we came back in the summer. It hasn't exactly been a good game at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be looking at things like the goal show, and BT have done that fantastically. I know the forerunner and all that would be Sky and maybe even Final Score, but the way Champions League nights were arranged in the group stages over the past couple of years, with James Richardson at the helm and the likes of Julian Arends and Ralph Honigstein and all these guys, that's been a fantastic watch because it's non-stop and it's like cutting to a game. There's no filling in between. You're looking at action on a screen more often than not, rather than just somebody talking to somebody else in the studio. So that could be the way forward for a lot of not only football coverage but rugby coverage going down the line as well. You could see Champions Cup rights holders adopting that kind of format too.
Yeah, and even the way they've to kind of stagger those kickoffs now in rugby, like in the Heineken Champions Cup, you have 5:30 games on a Friday evening now, which I know Leinster are going to have 2 of over the next few weeks as well. Moving away from all this one, there's a text in here from Pat in Fermoy in Cork. Does anyone have anything still in the fridge with the best before date for Christmas Day? Makes me all nostalgic for the Christmas break. I don't have anything with the best before date for Christmas Day, but I do have a bit of chocolate biscuit cake. My dad's birthday was over Christmas and I brought some back up to Dublin with me, and that lasts a little while, isn't it?
But it's like cement though, that thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Chocolate biscuit cake, the best of times you need a chisel and a lump hammer to get at it. But I'd say now, a few days removed from it being made, that thing is going to be just congealed into one unmovable mass. So you could stick a sword in there and never pull it out.
Like most of my meals then.
Pretty much. I didn't want to point it out, but yeah.
What other text do we have? This one coming in. This is actually just a message sent in, I think, from Enda, our producer outside. Goal show is good in theory, but the games are staggered now throughout the day, so it's not doable at the minute. Well, the point, Enda, is that...
That's our point, Enda.
We could put them back to 3 o'clock and have 3 or 4 games and then do a goals show. A goals show with just Fulham against West Brom on a Saturday afternoon probably isn't great either.
Yeah, we cut back to Craven Cottage where no, Bobby Reid is just fired away again. That's fine.
Right, let's get into the actual news of the day, because Liverpool and Southampton's kicking off at 8 o'clock at St Mary's. We'll have Mark Lawrenson coming up in around 15 minutes time or so. Team news is in, Richie, and Liverpool's defence makeshift to say the least.
Yeah, if Laro had his boots and a jersey to his size handy and he headed to the English South Coast tonight, he might be well in with a chance of a game. Liverpool, the chance to establish a 3-point lead at the top of the Premier League table tonight, Jurgen Klopp's side, away to Southampton from 8 p.m. The team news is in. For Southampton, Fraser Forster starts in goal. They've got it back four then of Kyle Walker-Peters, Jack Stevens, Jan Bednarek and Ryan Bertrand. Ibrahima Diallo, James Ward-Prowse and Stuart Armstrong are in midfield, with Moussa Djenepo and Theo Walcott in support of Danny Ings. From an Irish perspective, Shane Long and Will Smallbone are both on the bench for the Saints. For Liverpool, Alisson starts in goal, as you might expect, and Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andrew Robertson are their full backs. But in the heart of their defence, the midfielders, Jordan Henderson and Fabinho. In midfield itself, it's Thiago Alcantara making just his second Premier League start for the champions, Jorginho Wijnaldum and the returning Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and up front the familiar front three of Sadio Mane, Mo Salah and Roberto Firmino. With a new injury sustained by Joel Matip, Liverpool, as we know, down to bare bones at the heart of their defence, but Jurgen Klopp says they do have enough options, it would seem, within the squad to cope.
So we have solutions in the squad, obviously. Yes, and we struggle still. So it's always the injuries we had now from a specific moment happen most of the time in the centre halves position. That's clear. It's because then some players are injured, play pretty quick, like Joel, and then gets injured again. It's like a little bit, I don't know how to say it, but it just can happen like this when it starts at one point, then it doesn't stop. So we have solutions in the squad. And if we can or if we will do something in the win, it's just, I don't know. It's really like that. It's a very difficult transfer window, how you can imagine. No club, not a lot of clubs have real money. Some clubs don't have money but don't need money as well. So that's the situation. And doing something makes no sense. Yeah. Doing the right thing would make sense, yeah, but doing something makes no sense.
Yeah, that game kicking off at 8 o'clock, and as I said, Mark Lawrenson will be with us at 7:30 to look ahead to it. Richie, Jack Byrne, his move to Cyprus, complete officially today?
Yeah, it is indeed. The Republic of Ireland midfielder has completed his move to APOEL Nicosia. The Cypriot First Division strugglers are managed by former Republic of Ireland boss Mick McCarthy. Byrne spent the last 2 seasons, as we know, at Shamrock Rovers, helping them win an SSE or Treacy Premier Division title and an FAI Cup in the process as well. He's also been named PFAI Player of the Year 2 seasons running. He signed a 2-year deal with APOEL, who sit 4th from bottom in the Cypriot First Division after defeats in each of their last 3 games. McCarthy has actually just led them to 2 First Division victories since taking over in November.
Yeah, it definitely is a little bit of a risk of a move, because there's every possibility I don't say every possibility. It is possible that Mick McCarthy,
there is,
if their form continues the way it has been going since he arrived, he might not be there in a few months' time. God knows who could be coming in after that. All of a sudden, Mick McCarthy went out and signed Jack Byrne. I don't think APOEL Nicosia necessarily were looking for him. It was Mick McCarthy who wanted to bring him in. If a new manager comes in and doesn't fancy him, it's a big risk.
He's their 12th manager in the last 5 years, is Mick.
Ooh.
I think that will probably tell its own tale. The likes of Timuri Ketsbayev have come and gone, Mario Bain, Thomas Dahl, the former Germany midfielder, Kara Ingebrigtsen from Norway. They're pretty happy about changing their manager. They've been on a poor run of form. Mick took over with the team, not in the best of positions in the Cypriot First Division. They had a little bit of a bump after he took over. He got back-to-back wins, but the last 3 games have been defeats. They haven't scored a goal in any of the last 3 games either. So the pressure, you would imagine, given the recent managerial history at the club, would be very much on McCarthy. So it's as you say, it's a hell of a risk for Jack Byrne. But to be honest with you, presuming it does all work out, and we'll look on the positive side of this thing, it is nice to see that a player is looking away from England for a move from the League of Ireland, because for Byrne, I don't think playing in the lower leagues suited him over the past few years. He was being forced to play for the likes of Oldham and Wigan, and struggling away in the Division 1 and playing on boggy pitches and playing lumpen football, and it's not exactly the type of game that suits a Jack Byrne. So fingers crossed he'll actually get to play the type of football he wants to play over in Cyprus, similar to what we saw him do when he was on loan at Canberra over in Holland a few years ago. Yeah,
very best of luck to him, because as we say, it is...
To that end, though,
go ahead.
From a stylistic point of view, and Richie's point is valid, that playing on the continent, as it were, is probably a better fit for someone like Jack Byrne, but I wouldn't exactly say, granted Mick McCarthy gave him his debut for Ireland, that it's a style that meshes with Jack Byrne's strengths, the Mick McCarthy way. So I can't profess to watch too much Cypriot football, but I don't think Mick McCarthy will have changed his career approach. And while he's not afraid to let the shackles off, it is still a little bit rigid in what where Jack Byrne will want to be finding spaces and sort of dictating games from midfield. That hasn't necessarily been the way Mick McCarthy has set his teams up. So in the long term, it is an interesting one, but a bold move from him, and he deserves credit for taking it, I think.
Yeah, certainly does. Next up, Richie, retirement season in Gaelic games. It's in full flow at the moment.
Especially at Mayo, 2-time All-Star goalkeeper David Clarke today retired from intercounty football. He's the second Mayo player in as many days to confirm their retirement, after Donald Vaughan did the very same yesterday. Following his debut in 2002, Clarke won 8 Connacht football titles and also a pair of Allianz Football Leagues. Meath veteran forward Graham Riley is another to confirm their intercounty retirement as well. He made his debut, as a teenager in 2007 and was a Leinster title winner with the Royals in 2010. Riley cited his captaincy of the Meath side in 2017 as a career highlight. Sean Tobin also confirmed his retirement from the Meath panel over the weekend.
You're the Meath man in here, Richie. Graham Riley's legacy?
Yeah, I mean, he's came along at a very, very tough time. He pointed out in an interview a couple of years ago that when he joined the panel in 2007, the likes of Graham Geraghty and Darren Fay were still there. Granted, both of them were towards the tail end of their career, but he came along at a very tough time for Meath and was a stalwart of that forward line over the past decade or more. One of these guys, you can never ask for more in terms of effort. You can never ask for more in terms of his desire to play in the jersey. But again, I'm not saying he was let down by the other players around him, but it was a case whereby he came along at a very unfortunate period for Meath football, that 2010 Leinster title win notwithstanding, but has been a great servant to the side over the past decade or more, and good luck to him in his retirement. Next up, Richie, Premier League and COVID-19 news. Yeah, the Premier League are leaving this up to the clubs. They'll leave it up to individual clubs to discipline players who've broken coronavirus rules over Christmas and New Year. Some players from Manchester City, Tottenham, Fulham and Crystal Palace have appeared to breach coronavirus government guidelines during the festive period. The top flight wrote to its teams before Christmas, highlighting the need to be vigilant due to the new variant of COVID-19. As we know, Boris Johnson is going to address the UK population this evening regarding new restrictions in England that aren't expected to affect the Premier League, but it will cast these actions of certain players in a further poor light over the course of the past couple of nights and weekends. Yeah, particularly for Manchester City, when you see their game against Everton being called off last week. I'd love to have been around Carlo Ancelotti when he saw the news about Benjamin Mendy the other day. Meanwhile, rugby news, bit of injury doubts for Leinster. Yeah, Jonathan Sexton in doubt for Friday's Pro 14 derby with Ulster. The Ireland captain sustained a head injury in the weekend defeat to Connacht and is following the return to play protocols. Scott Penny, Kieran Frawley and Josh Murphy are also doubts for the top of the table clash at the RDS. But Rhys Ruddock is in contention. That follows a rib injury. And Jordan Larmour back in training after suffering a dislocated shoulder back in October. Leinster coach Felipe Contepomi says lessons will have been learned from that defeat to Connacht at the weekend.
Oh, lessons a lot. I think in terms rugby wise, quite a few. You know, I think we've been beaten on the day in nearly every aspect of the game. So definitely we've a lot to learn from that game. We can't say or too much on what had happened because we have to move on and we have a very short turnaround to play what's probably the informed team in Pro 14, and they've been unlucky with Europe, the 2 games in Europe, but they are playing brilliant rugby. So we'll definitely have to take on the lessons we've learned and take them on board and keep trying to improve and get better for the next weekend. You know, we have massive games coming, so we need to make sure that we turn the page quickly and we take on board all what we've learned. As I said, rugby-wise, loads of lessons to learn there.
We've reaction from the new PDC World Arts Champion, Gerwyn Price. Richie, we touched on it there a few minutes ago.
Yeah, he became the 4th different PDC World Arts Champion in as many years last night, beating 2-time former champion Gary Anderson 7-3 at Alexandra Palace. Price deposed Michael van Gerwen, as world number 1 with that victory. When Van Gerwen first won the PDC trophy, Price had just retired from playing professional rugby, and he says it's been a long journey to the top of a new sport.
To be honest with you, if I knew the rules when I went, I probably wouldn't have even gone. You know, after I won my tow card, Barry said to me that, it costs 105 quid every event. I was like, well, yeah, if I knew that, I wouldn't have gone. But glad I didn't know that now. So, yeah, I've earned those 105 quids over and over.
Yeah, he certainly has with that 500 grand victory last night. We kind of touched on it there earlier on. Obviously, there's no crowds at the Ali Pali for the vast majority of the tournament. I have to say I didn't really notice they weren't there. Obviously, the crowd noise piped in over on the Sky Sports feed. I kind of liked the look of the arena, though. The way they had that long runway going back to the TV studio and the trophy just sitting behind it. I don't know.
Yeah, it was nice, but I think like for all of the piped in noise and the fact that it sounded somewhat realistic, it is lacking something to not have the baying mob behind at Ali Pali, people dressed up in Minions costumes, holding up signs, saying hello to their mates back home or whatever they're doing. Like it is something whereby the intangible of having a crowd there just seems to work in that event's favour. It adds a bigness and a sense of scale to it that wouldn't have been there. And like I've seen a lot of tournaments, like of ITV4 show stuff over the weekends that isn't necessarily your PDC World Arts Championships, and it's just scaled down versions of that whereby it's just sponsorship boards behind people and it looks like qualifying tournaments, and it's not really as enjoyable. You need the sense of drama that, you know, having a crowd there, having live audible gasps adds to the theatre of something like the World Arts Championship, because it just wasn't the same this year. It really wasn't. Yeah,
and it wasn't like the Premier League where you had the option of listening to the crowd noise or no crowd noise. I would have been interested just for a little bit to see what the zero crowd noise option was like.
Haunting, I'd say.
You have to imagine this is a sport where there is actually a tangible effect from the crowd. Like the crowd are such an involved part of darts that you can't, like players have become so used to it, and there is a sense of momentum almost when a player's on a run that they kind of get the crowd with them and it carries them on. I suppose it's true to any sport, but because the proximity of darts, it feels a bit more amplified. And Gerwyn Price, like rightly or wrongly, has a particularly attuned relationship with the crowd. I know he's the bad boy of darts, Neil. I know bad boy gets thrown around the sports to varying degrees, but
he absolutely is a bad boy.
He has had a few run-ins with players, with the crowd, with referees, and the list goes on. I think it was a Whitlock a couple of years ago in the Grand Slam of darts, and then Gary Anderson himself. I think Gerwyn Price was fined because of a run-in he had with him on stage. So like he has a particular. I think he wouldn't have missed the crowd all that much, although he did make points that maybe having won in this kind of fashion, he might have won over a few more fans. But it'll be interesting next year, like presuming there are fans back, to see how things played out, because it did feel a little different, not just without the crowd, but the standard of play was a little bit different as well, I thought.
Yeah, I did find it really interesting actually towards the end of the match. Like, you know, the Iceman is his nickname, whatever. He kind of, he comes across with the kind of, you know, he tries to have the arrogant attitude about him. And you could see as he was getting closer to, did he miss like 10 match starts, I think it was?
Yeah.
And even before the last one, he took a long walk back of about 15 steps, took probably 10, 15 seconds to compose himself. Like he was bricking it, and he wasn't afraid to show it either, which I actually really did enjoy seeing, you know?
And Anderson was complaining earlier on in the tournament about speed of play as well. Like, that wouldn't have been an issue if there had been a crowd there, because you would have had the crowd geeing things on and hurrying things up and booing and all that. Similarly, Dave Chisnell's win over Michael Van Gerwen, I'm not sure would have come to pass as well as he did play if there was a full crowd there, because I think nerves would have come into that, certainly, especially with the calibre of darts that they were playing. There was one, that leg that did the rounds on social media, whereby they were knocking out 180s for fun. Like, that doesn't necessarily happen with a full crowd there. So it's one of these events that definitely needs them back next year.
Guys, we're completely out of time here on the Newsround. Time for one last text, though. The back to work fear last night was bad. I'd rate it as a 4 glasses of wine fear. That's what it took to settle the nerves thinking about today. This is from Niall, who is unloading Pete briquettes from the boot of the car to the living room. Is carrying a bale of briquettes the most painful chore? Yes, yes it is, says Niall. And I would fully agree. I went through that experience. What is it about them? Just rip the fingers off you.
It's the stuff that it's those little carrier holder things that are on them as well. I had a similar experience with unloading Argos catalogues when I used to work in Argos 20 odd years ago out in Blanche. Like, I had to load up that pallet at the front of the store on my first couple of days, and that is proper hard labour. And it's similar to lugging briquettes in from the back of the car to the house. So my full sympathies are with that texter. All
right, Richie McCormack and Ronan Mullen, thanks a million for joining us this evening.
Cheers, Neil.
Coming up next, it is Mark Lawrenson looking ahead to Southampton against Liverpool. Kick-off 8 o'clock.